getting through that curve is your safety net. Welcome, friends. Maybe you've been down this road. Suddenly you find yourself numbing out, the drink in the hand, the drug, wondering, how did I get here again? The pornography. Relapse isn't just about weakness. It is a cry from deep within, in that quiet moment when you think, I just can't feel this way any longer. And a lot of times you don't even know what you feel. You just need to numb it. And it works for a time, doesn't it? The worry collapses, but then the high wears off, the real pain still there, only louder this time. And you wake up with more than a hangover. There's the guilt, the shame, the regret. I did it again, the pounding in the chest, maybe the anxiety attack. I've been through all of it. The secret is that it's not the drug's fault. It's not the bottle's fault. It is the feelings that you have been running from. And look, I've been there. So many of us have been there, staring at the shattered pieces and wondering, why do I keep doing this to myself? Relapse happens not because you're weak, but because you learn to dodge your own feelings. But then those feelings catch up, right? All the hiding in the world isn't going to keep them down. We were born with them. So in this episode, we are going to dive past the relapse, past the triggers, into the emotions we were trained to avoid, and watch till the end, because you will discover why emotional pain leads to relapse, what is alexithymia and why it might be holding you back, how your childhood may have shaped those emotional blind spots, the 7 core emotions that you need to understand, and the hidden emotional curve that no one teaches us, and how writing it can literally transform your life and transform your recovery. Please hit the subscribe button and keep listening. It's eye-opening and maybe one of the most important conversations that you've ever been a part of. So emotional blindness, or alexithymia, is the word for it, and it literally means no words for emotions. Imagine feeling restless, feeling empty, but you don't know what that is. You don't have a word for it. Maybe you think it's stress. You just know something's wrong, but you can't pinpoint it. I felt this way all the time. I'm feeling right? And I don't know what it is. Is it fear, sadness, anger? So if you struggle with this, it may feel like your emotions are locked behind a glass wall, or that, like for me, I always felt like I was trapped inside of myself, just sort of pounding on my chest, let me out, the little codependent inside of me, right? And feeling all these things, but really blind to what they really were. And so the void is painful, and there's a strong connection between the pain and addiction, which you probably know. In fact, many studies find that a large number of people battling addiction also struggle to name their emotions. And so when you can't say, I'm scared, I'm hurting, your brain just yells something's wrong so loud that you feel like you've got to do something about it. And often that something is the drink, the pill, anything that will make you stop feeling the pain or stop feeling so much of nothing because you stuffed it so long ago. Maybe that's why you're cutting yourself, to feel something. You're not crazy. You're not alone. Think of it as like driving a car without a dashboard. You know the engine's running hot, but you have no fuel gauge to tell you to refuel, so you stall. That's what emotional blindness does. It stalls us until something jerks us awake. So in recovery, learning to identify and name the feelings is important. It's building that emotional dashboard. Okay? It's one of the greatest quiet battles ever, but it is so important. And look, if you're a guy or a tough guy or gal, it's not all about crying all the time and all these sorts of things. It's just kind of, some mindfulness, understanding what I'm feeling and how to get to the other side of it. That's really what we're diving into, okay? Think of it as your mind is, think of it as almost like a computer or something. You want a strong body, you also want a strong mind. Duh. And dealing with emotions instead of stuffing them is actually the much stronger thing to do. So everybody has a basic emotional vocabulary, even if you grew up pretending you didn't. But there are 7 core emotions, and then it feels like there's hundreds of variations of all of them. So there's joy. We all know what that is. There's sadness, which is disappointment. It's really just disappointment. There's fear, which we'll get into that. Heart racing, palms sweating, fight or flight kicking in, danger, right? Something is not safe. There's disgust, which is always interesting to me that disgust is one of the core emotions. Ew. There's anger, and there is surprise, and there is contempt, which is a mix of anger and disgust. So here's what's interesting is anger and contempt both have fear underneath the surface. So if we're really, really, really angry, chances are we're afraid, and we want to look at what we're afraid of. My husband used to always say, anger levels the playing field. So we're afraid of a discussion, you start yelling, you clear the room, there you go. I just leveled the playing field, right? Not good. So a lot of times behind that fire is a quivering, I am scared of this. So, I'm hurt because of that. But we don't want to look at that because we were probably told as kids that, fear is a weakness. And so anger seems stronger and anger seems better. So let's talk about riding the wave. Every feeling is like a wave on the ocean. It doesn't just explode and stay there forever, right? It swells up, it peaks, and then it slowly rolls back down, okay? So this is called the emotional curve, right? Happiness builds, returns to normal, sadness intensifies, then it eventually fades. So think of it as like riding a surfboard. At first, it's just gently carrying you, then it rises, then it takes you higher. It can be really intense, and this is where we're just like, oh my gosh, I want to numb. It crests, and then it calms down. So emotions work like this. So a panic attack might rise until you're out of breath. This is how I used to have panic attacks. I thought I was going to die, all this stuff, right? And I would drink to try to deal with a panic attack rather than get through it because I thought I was going to die. But then it peaks, then it dissipates, right? A burst of anger builds, heart pounds. Then hours later, you calm down. It doesn't last forever. So the trick is to stay with it, to stay with the wave until it calms down. With all the emotions, we do this, we ride the wave. If we can ride the wave, we can stay sober. So if you understand that curve, we could see why pushing away the feelings doesn't help. It's like jumping off mid-raft. The whole thing about don't jump ship, right? Don't jump off yet. Okay, because you're going to miss seeing the wave come down softly. But if you lean into the wave, right, you feel the full weight at its natural end, then we understand this too shall pass. Every intense emotion carries that truth with it. So the whole concept, the buzzword, lean in, this is super, super important. Okay, so we didn't learn this when we were a kid. Chances are, depending on your age, I wasn't old enough to be given an iPad, but the kid's crying, you give it the iPad, doesn't deal with the crying, jumps ship, plays with the iPad. right? And then as they get older and they get older and they older, they keep jumping ship. Pretty soon they got to numb the emotion because they can't deal with it because they've never been to the other side of it. Does that make sense? Right? So from our earliest days, we're taught this, stop crying. Don't feel that way. Big girls and boys, don't cry. Don't be scared. Don't be such a baby. This can play into everything, even from our instincts, which is even creepier. Oh, your uncle's not like that. He's just trying to be nice or whatever. Kids have really good instincts. Kids, we know what's going on. And so, if you're a parent, it's really about nurturing those emotions. Just so as kids, we understand it. We understand our emotions. We understand our instincts. It's part of training. But no, we tell them to bail out. Okay? So what happens is then we stuff them. We hide them. Don't feel that way. Okay, so I won't. So you stuff it. This is a survival tactic, particularly if there's abuse. You're not even allowed to feel it. Or we put it onto something else. I don't know if you've ever read People of the Lie by Scott M. Peck. Oh my gosh. Her mom was like a spider. And so she had this horrible fear of spiders because she didn't want to admit that her mom was the problem. And it took him like 20 years of helping this girl since she was a teenager to help her see that. Crazy. Anyway, so all of these things, don't upset your parents, feelings are dangerous. We absorb that. And then as adults, what happens? It becomes instinctive to avoid pain, to avoid certain emotions. It's labeled bad. We banish it, right? Sadness is weak. We smother it. We don't say what we need to say. I'm hurt. I'm lonely. And in fact, psychologists note that kids who had no help coping often turn to avoidance as their default. Drugs and alcohol. I know I was told, stop feeling that way. Your dad and I don't know why you feel that way. And then you're like, well, I don't know either. There must be something wrong with me, So don't feel that. Like, how do you just not feel that way? So, right? So you learn to not feel that way, right? So you stuff it. And then it becomes an adult crisis, right? The childhood pattern becomes the adult crisis. And then we start with the emotional coping mechanisms that we learn these habits young when life hurts. We learn to numb out with substances, drinking, smoking, binging TV. Okay, I don't need to tell you all of that. Hyper busyness, workaholic, filling the schedule. I don't have that problem. Sometimes I wish I did. Deflection, people pleasing, codependency, part of stuffing emotions, that can be a real issue. Like, so for me, I stuffed everything and then I didn't know what I was feeling, but I was highly concerned with what you were feeling and I could pick up on other people's feelings, right? And would try to, manage those, but not manage my own. And this caused all kinds of problems with boundaries. I mean, you name it, dysfunctional relationships, getting taken advantage of, on and on and on and on and on and on. And then, we can have the angry outbursts. We have shutdowns. Sometimes we flip into anger the moment anything stressful happens because anger, again, feels more active than fear, like we're doing something about it. Okay? So these are all things that happen. And these are all ways of cutting the curve short, jumping ship, okay? If I don't let that feeling get too big, right, then I don't have the hard work of getting through it because I'm afraid to get through it because because I've never been to the other side of it, I feel like it might actually kill me, so I've got to jump ship, okay? And the thing is, it's just the monster in the closet, right? It's not going to kill you. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And avoiding it always fails. So here's the catch. Pushing it down won't make it disappear. It buries it deeper where it grows stronger, right? So it doesn't vanish. It just lurks down there, ready to pop up. Picture stuffing a beach ball into the, underwater. They use this analogy a lot. You're trying to push it down, you're trying, and then it goes, which would always happen to me. It'd be something like I couldn't get the spaghetti jar open, and then I would throw it against the wall, and there'd be spaghetti all over the place, or spaghetti sauce, a big mess. Had nothing to do with not being able to get the jar open. It was just this rage that would just come up, or it would happen in traffic. I'd just get into this massive road rage because I had no boundaries. I had no boundaries. But I didn't really understand I had no boundaries. And I was afraid to feel, and I was afraid to express my feelings. And so then in traffic, I would just go psycho. Okay. It's going to come out. It's going to come out. And so this avoidance is what then is interrupting the healing, because you cannot fix the problem that you can't see, refuse to see. So unfelt pain is just going to keep driving your actions from behind the scenes. And so this is where many people notice a pattern, because the more you try to pretend nothing's wrong, the more the emotions sneak into your behavior. Sleepless nights, panic attacks, sudden outbursts. You actually end up giving the emotions more power by refusing to allow it. So we want to complete the curve, right? This is what resilience is. What if instead of running, we again lean in, face the emotion full on, which is hard, but that's how you finish the wave, and then it gets easier. So this is what the resilience is made of. Every time you allow yourself to feel in the safe moment, you prove that you can survive it. So here's how to practice completing the curve, right? Pause, name the emotion. What is it? Get as close as you can to what it is. Stop what you're doing, take a breath. What am I feeling? I'm angry. Okay, is there sadness or is there fear underneath it? What am I afraid of? What am I sad about? Naming it can take its power away. Just like the biblical concept, sin festers in the dark. We let it into the light, confess it, put it out there. It loses its power. And then just allow it. It's okay to feel stuff. Give yourself permission. Okay, let the tears come. Admit it. I'm anxious. I'm afraid. I'm sad. Remember Paul's wisdom in Romans, even suffering produces something in you. Perseverance and hope. You're in a workshop. You're being molded. We're learning to ride the wave. We're learning to surf the emotions, breathe through it, sit through it, notice your body. Because sometimes when we figure out what's happening in here, we understand, this is anxiety, right? Chest tight, hands shaking. We start to notice what's happening to our body. A lot of times that can get us closer to figuring out what that emotion is, but staying with it, right? Each breath is steering you through the storm. And then once you get to the other side, the next time it happens, it's going to be easier, and it's going to be easier. That doesn't mean pain is ever easy, but you understand that you can get through the other side without relapsing, without using, okay? And then we find those other ways to seek comfort. Pray, talk to someone you trust, read a hopeful verse. Psalm 34:18, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, right? He saves those who are crushed in spirit. In that broken moment, reach for a friend, a hug, a worship song, a prayer. You are not alone you're not alone in the storm. Right? It's better to be with Jesus in the storm than on shore without him. I think it was Dr. David Jeremiah that said that. Right? So notice the calm when the wave passes. One of the things that I've done is sort of watch myself, pretend that I'm sort of outside my body watching myself. putting a little distance between me and the emotion and understanding that it's just the emotion and that it doesn't have to own me. And that can be very helpful too. So practice this in small doses, and then bigger ones over time. And you will find that each wave isn't as scary as the next one. And so you're building up the mental and spiritual muscles, just like these muscles, right? And then we learn, I can sit with this. I can sit with it and not be crushed by it. And so there's powerful insight in both the psychological concepts of this and the scriptures that align it. Proverbs 20 verse 5 says, "Deep waters are at the heart of a man, but a man of understanding will draw them out." Basically, it's our hearts are deep waters, right? But we reflect, we draw them out. God can draw them out. Our hearts are deep pools. We don't even know why we feel the way we feel a lot of times. But with patience, insight, spiritual wisdom, we can draw out those feelings. We can understand them. Romans 5 verses 3 through 4 reminds us we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces perseverance, character, hope. Every emotional storm you face and finish is like running a tough workout for your soul, right? You come out stronger. You come out more hopeful on the other side. And God promises He will walk through the dark waters with us. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. So when your spirit feels crushed, you have a divine companion. So you don't have to do this alone. In fact, part of spiritual growth is learning to feel, to let God comfort you when you're scared, to let His strength flow through you as you sit with the pain. You say, God, I'm hurting. You're actually taking a step of faith. You're saying, I trust that you can do something even here. Isaiah 61:3, He will grant those who mourn in Zion, giving them a beautiful headdress instead of ashes, the oil of joy, the oil of gladness instead of mourning. They may be called oaks of righteousness. Super poetic, but it's true. There is beauty for ashes, joy in the darkest times. And this, friends, is transformation, turning the rawness of pain into something strong, into something hopeful. Okay? So every night turns to dawn. The darkest wave that you just survived is the one before the morning. So take heart, right? Healing can come just like the sun breaks through the storm clouds. God can bring beauty and joy out of those places that you feel broken. Okay? So your journey with emotions is a journey of faith. And every time that you choose to sit with the feelings instead of fleeing, jumping ship, numbing out, you're choosing growth. You're relying on God's strength. You're building emotional resilience and spiritual character. Think of it as like you're trying to lose weight and you don't want to eat. This is what I'm trying to do. So you sit through the hunger, you get through it, right? So you're building up those muscles of, you're changing the habit and it's building up those muscles. Here's the call to hope, friends. Learning to ride the emotional wave. That's the path to lasting change. That's the path to sobriety. It's not just about staying clean. It's about becoming whole. As you grow stronger emotionally, you will find that the cravings fade. Not just because you have willpower. It's not about willpower, but because the underlying stuff has been addressed. So next time that old fear or hurt tries to push you overboard, remember what you've learned. Each emotional wave you conquer is proof that the next one is not going to drown you. And trust that God is with you on the journey. Emotions don't destroy you, but running from them does. So healing isn't just quitting, it's about riding that wave, okay? So take a deep breath. You're just learning the language of your heart, maybe for the first time. So thanks for watching, friends. If this episode gave you tools, gave you some clarity, gave you just a sense of peace, please subscribe, share it with someone that you know who is still learning how to feel. We don't have to do this alone, friends. We are riding this wave together. God bless you.